Hello and welcome back to the channel. Well, that's as good as the accent's ever going to get with a Geordie. Welcome back, folks. Welcome back to the workshop, or as the wife will refer to it, the dining area. Never mind, after a week of covering wings and adding wing tape, I've had enough. I've basically done 5 sets of wings. Actually, I think I can show you most of them anyway. So there's a pile in the corner there. There's a one there that needs collecting. I did for a friend at the club. Another couple of wings tucked away there. So that's what happens when you build biplanes and triplanes. There are lots of wings to do. But I need a break. And one of the attractions of this hobby is there are lots of different aspects to it. And what I want to get involved in now is a little bit of painting. The scheme I'm going to do for this DR1 belongs to the Jasta 19 squadron, and it belongs to a Hans Corners. I'm sure I've crucified that pronunciation. I'm attracted to it because it's a very distinctive livery, which you'll see unfold. And one of the things that you have to face in terms of a challenge, other than the fact that the DR1s have 3 wings, so it's 3 times the amount of work, is that they have quite a unique finish applied to them, and that is the green streaking. Now, it's not quite as challenging as the lozenge pattern, which was adopted by many of the German aircraft. However, it's got its own unique problems. It was really a system of painting the aircraft that was applied out of necessity. It was economic to apply, and it was quick. And obviously Germany was stretched as we're going into, I think it was 1917, and they needed to get these aircraft out quickly. Now, I'm a great believer in learning from other people's successes and mistakes, and somebody once said to me, if you copy off one person, it's called plagiarization. If you copy off lots of people, it's called research. And I've been doing lots of research on different techniques in achieving this finish, including those that have been used on the full-size replicas which are around now. Basically, this is what I'm going to try and do. I've already applied a coat of household enamel, more of that in a second, and I've picked a sort of a pale beige colour to simulate the sort of linen that you would have had on these aircraft when the dope was applied to them. If I'd thought in advance, I perhaps could have added a tint of colour to the dope as I was doing this model, and achieved the same thing, but I need a base on which to paint. I'm using these household paints that are mixed up at the local DIY store. In the UK it happens to be B&Q, and that's the base that I'm using to simulate the raw fabric. I found when I applied this to the Junkmeister, it works really well, and it stood the test of time. It's going to be a petrol engine in here, and it will be fuel proofed, and petrol isn't quite as aggressive as glow fuel, but nevertheless it seems to hold up well, and it goes on really well. That's one coat, and that's good enough for what I need. The idea is going to follow roughly these lines. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint on, airbrush on some false shadows. And by that, what I mean is I'll pick up the structure and I'll create a false shadow, spraying on in a dark tone. It may not be black, it may be a very deep sepia colour, for example. I'll mark on where the structure would have been on the model, on the prototype. And then when I apply the streaking over the top, that shadow will still show through, and it will show through as if it was the structure you were looking at. It's Perhaps I can illustrate that better with the wing. So I've applied the same finish to the wing, and I've applied some masking tape over the main ribs. And what I'll do is I'll airbrush a shadow on there and then take it off, and you'll have a light line. And then when the streaking is applied, that will just show through, I hope, the streaking finish. Now, between applying the shadow and beginning to put on the streak effect, I'll need to seal the paint. And to do that, I'm going to spray it with an acrylic varnish and let that go off for a couple of days. This video will be done over a couple of days. An acrylic varnish, and then when I apply the colour on top, the green streak on top, if any of it goes wrong, I'll be able to wipe it off without affecting the shading that's going on underneath it. And what am I going to use? Well, you can see how much was paid for this, 50p. What's that, about 40 cents in the States? This is the emulsion paint. I think in the USA it would be called what's it called? Latex paint. So that's the dark green that I'm going to use. My daughter couldn't decide on what colour our living room was going to be, so she got a few sample pots. There's a sort of mid-range green. And the final one is a much lighter colour. And when it comes to applying that, I'll show you the technique that I'm going to try. We'll see if it works. But the first stage is going to be to use some soft masking and hard masking. And by that I mean, I'll cut out, for example, here, when the aircraft went to the squadrons, they were finished in pale blue underneath and the streak all over. And then the individual squadrons would apply their own colour schemes. In this case, it was quite common to paint the tail a different colour to make them stand out. And then individual pilots would customise their aircraft by painting over the top of the factory finish. So the cross that would be here on this particular aircraft I want to model was painted over. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to spray it on in black on here and then apply the streaking over the top. But you'll still be able to see something of that black cross showing through the paintwork, as it would have been in the prototype. And likewise, there's a lightning strike or a white zigzag that runs down the fuselage side and across the top. And that cuts through the cross, but also some of the writing that's on the airframe. And I want to try and simulate that effect as well. I'm hoping that this will work. If this paint doesn't work, I know something that would be guaranteed to work, and that is to finish the top coat with oil paints. The difficulty with oil paints is they take a lifetime to dry. And I want to avoid that if I can. I'm in no rush to finish this. I'm enjoying the journey, but I don't want to be spending weeks and even months for oil paint to dry correctly. So, stage one is done. I've applied this buff finish to simulate the linen. I'll start applying the shading, and I'll show you what that looks like partway through. It's very difficult to set the camera up in the what is the real workshop because it's pretty cramped in there, and this is a big model. But I'll show you how I'm going to go about that in stages. So this is the cross for the side of the fuselage. I've drawn it out. I'll cut that out onto some masking film, which I haven't actually tried for a long time, and certainly not on a fabric surface. So we'll see how that goes. I'll cut that out, spray that on in black, and then that'll be overpainted. Seems like a lot of effort to obliterate it, but I'll know it's there and I think you will see it. And there we go. It looks quite stark, doesn't it? But the idea is that when the over painting occurs, the streaking, some of that will show through as a sort of ghost shadow, including the Maltese crosses that you see here. So I think it's probably an appropriate point to stop there. The actual application of the streaking effect is a video on its own right. If you've enjoyed that up to now, please give it a thumbs up. And the next instalment of this particular series will be attempting to do some of the Fokker streaking effect. Bye for now.